I'm also joined by Lorne Stalker, who is Engineering Director for UK and Ireland and works with GlobalLogic. He will be talking about the how at later part of this session. Feature of FeatureOps at the AA. So let me take you back to the beginning to why even we started down this road. Because technology is the easy part of the story. The interesting part is the pressure that made it necessary. The AA is a 120 years old heritage brand with a very rich history of serving the drivers in the UK. We are often recognized as the fourth emergency service in the UK and are always available for our customers. With a multi-million customer base, it's significantly important that our customers are able to efficiently use our service when they need us the most. While we are very proud of our legacy, we run our applications and digital channels on a very modern tech stack. We process more than 95% of our sales digitally. A significant portion of our breakdown calls are reported again fully digitally, which means a customer don't have to ring us and can get the service at their fingertips. As we build features at pace for our customers, making sure they are released safely is of an utmost importance. Our application needs to be highly available so that our customer can report a breakdown and get back on the road quickly. While breakdown recovery remains the primary business, there are several other major business lines that we serve our customers, be it providing insurance cover for our cars, van, and home, or be it providing business services like member savings accounts or loans, from providing accident assist services all the way to helping customers learn to drive through our driving school offering. We operate in a highly regulated environment while performing critical services for our customers. Given the nature of our application and services, it's important we make releases safer as ever using modern techniques like FeatureOps, which helps in safely releasing product features without compromising on quality and speed. I'll quickly talk about why we have selected Unleash as a feature flag management tool to implement FeatureOps at the AA. There are multiple reasons for that, but the two that stands out are its extensibility to work inside a custom wrapper that we built to follow a generic pattern for implementation, making it efficient to manage centrally. And the second thing is how Unleash manages privacy for our customers. The data never leaves our servers, and the evaluation happens at server side for operations involving PII data. This helped us to get the buy-in from our stakeholders, mainly in the data and privacy team. Cruise control. What's in there in a name? So, we in engineering believe for a product to be truly adopted, it needs to speak a business language that everyone could follow. We have similar several other named products like Torque AI, our AI platform, Autopilot, which is a self-service portal for our internal teams. Bringing this closer to business terms has helped us increase our adoption and is helping the teams to deliver with ease. Our customers increasingly interact with us through a screen. Digital has become the front door. So it's very important that at this stage we have some capabilities like FeatureOps. This means that there is almost no such thing as a small change anymore. Nearly everything we touch is something a customer will see. Buying breakdown cover, reporting a breakdown, booking a driving lesson, or taking out a loan. At the same time, we have commitments, contractual, regulatory, that don't move. They have to land on time, and we have to be in control of exactly what ships and when. Layer on top the big company wide programs, all moving at pace, all needing to release safely without tripping over each other. And then, of course, we have our own ambition on top of these to digitize the group to make decisions from data rather than instinct. These four forces all demands the same thing, the ability to react at pace, release safely and predictably, and for the company to stay available faster and safer at the same time. Historically, these two goals fought each other. The faster we went, the more it hurt, especially when something broke. When we started to think about it, why it hurts, we found a single, almost embarrassingly simple answer. Every time we deploy a code, it is released to customers. The two are welded together, and if every deployment is a release, then every release carries the full weight and risk of a deployment. That's the trap. The coupling between deploy and releases as one inseparable event is the thing that made changes at the AA slower and sometimes quite scary. And historically, the way we had approached making deployments feel safer and in turn releases feel safer was through applying rigorous change management process on top of code freeze gates, which we all have seen in past, some see today, test sign off gates, fixed release windows. This time, we stopped trying to make these releases safer through bureaucracy and started asking a different question. What if deploying and releasing didn't have to be the same thing at all? This led to us without releasing features and towards cruise control and feature ops. Our releases before, and where many organizations still live today, was all or nothing. You deploy and customers get that in an instant. Deploy equals release. With cruise control, we break that link. Code can make its way all the way to production, switched off, sitting in a dormant state, being invisible. Deploying no longer equals releasing features to customers. Now, the people who own the product can decide who sees the feature and when they are ready to reveal it, not when the deployment pipeline happens to finish. And that changes everything. You release when the business is ready, you roll out gradually to maybe internal users, and then to another 10% of external users, and then all users once you get enough confidence in the release. If something looks wrong, you don't scramble for a hotfix and release it in a hurry. You flip back the switch instantly. The risky moment just disappears. I'll just let that soak in for a moment. Something that we have discovered with cruise control is really eye-opening. Its benefits aren't just for engineers. They ripple out across the entire product landscape and into the business. Engineers get a faster release cycle. For us, this means that they no longer have to bloat all their changes through code freeze gates so that they are in QA for going into production on a given release. They no longer have to pull changes out that aren't ready. They can be feature flagged off. They have fewer hot fixes, like code can be disabled, and they can now safely test in production. At the same time, our product people get something they have always wanted for the ability to roll out a feature on their own terms, watch real data, real insights, and use that to make decisions about their product. They can instantly undo or roll back changes if they don't have the impact that was expected. And for operations team, the team within the AA who are responsible for everything that runs in our IT estate gets a genuine kill switch, which enables them to have fewer major incidents and a clean audit trail of every change that has made through the production environment. We no longer have a generic release change record that covers a lot of digital changes. What we have instead is a per feature audit trail of when and by whom features were rolled out and to whom they were rolled out. To bring this to theory, all these things, when we started looking at products like Unleash and considering feature ops, this has turned into an AA reality. Let me talk to you about some of those numbers that we have seen. We are deploying 35% more each month, year on year, and things are getting calmer, not noisier. We have had zero major incidents caused by a release, the number I'm most proud of, leading to a 20% increase in our conversion. Our business has been able to use cruise control to drive data driven products decisions for some of our key business journeys. We were also able to use feature ops for major migration programs like one of our legacy CMS migration to a modern CMS estate while testing the changes in production so that real customers weren't impacted by any content issues. So I've now covered why we created cruise control and what it earned as a business. None of that matters if the thing is hard to use and nobody adopts it. The real question becomes, how do we roll something like this out across all of our product line in a way that people still want to use it? Let me hand over this now to Lorne, who will talk more about it.
Thank you, Nikhil. A brief introduction to myself before I get started. So, as Nikhil mentioned, my name is Lorne. I work for a company called GlobalLogic as Director of Engineering for the UK and Ireland, focused on software and platform engineering. And we've been with the AA on this journey of adopting and rolling out cruise control and unleash from day one. As Nikhil mentioned, he's covered the why it was important to the AA, both from an engineering and a business perspective, to adopt FeatureOps, why cruise control was built around Unleash. And today I'm going to talk about how we rolled out cruise control. And as this slide says, we took the platform engineering approach. And as I talk today, hopefully you'll start to understand what that means and why it has certain benefits. So I'm going to start with what cruise control is. So cruise control is FeatureOps, but made native to the AA. So Unleash is the engine that powers cruise control, but cruise control is the entire experience. So what does that mean? If we look first, we've built a paved road with cruise control around Unleash. So we've made the right way to build products and features, in our opinion, which is driven by FeatureOps, the easiest approach to take. We've focused on driving up the volume of self-service that teams have. We are actively trying to increase this every day. We don't want teams to have to raise tickets to build products using a FeatureOps approach. We don't want to be gatekeepers, but we do want to have those controls around releasing and other best practices baked in. And again, I'll cover that in a little bit more detail in the coming slides. And then we focused on abstracting. So as much as we love Unleash as a product, Nikhil talked about the extensibility being one of the key reasons why Unleash was chosen. We've done a lot of work within our platform to hide the vendor plumbing and allow us to own the experience of cruise control and the way that teams adopt and use cruise control. And the goal here is really to reduce the cognitive load for our engineers and our product teams for doing FeatureOps. So what does that mean? So what does platform engineering to roll out FeatureOps look like? I've summarized it here in 3 layers. So we have at the top layer, the developer portal layer, which is where the engineers live. We have Autopilot. Nikhil mentioned this earlier, another one of our named products, which is our version of Backstage. And this provides teams a single pane of glass to discover, onboard, create, and manage feature flags. I'll touch on this in the next slide. The next layer down is the FeatureOps engine. So this is where Unleash sits, and it's also where our SDK wrapper sits. So we've built a custom wrapper around Unleash SDK that allows us to have certain benefits, which again I'll touch on today. And then the final layer is our underlying digital platform. So this is the infrastructure, the CI/CD, the governance, and the secrets management that makes up the paved road of building digital products at the AA. And if we dive into the first of these, this is a screenshot of our Autopilot Backstage instance. So we don't want to hide Unleash, so we still use Unleash UI for doing the change request process or the release process. But what we were hearing from engineers is that they wanted to be able to manage their feature flags in Autopilot, which is where they also can see their CI pipelines, their security scans, etc. So single pane of glass. We looked at the market. And a Backstage plugin didn't exist for Unleash. So we scratched our own itch and we actually created a plugin which is now open source, which allows our engineers to, from within Backstage, manage their flags across environments. Now, again, we have controls around what is possible. So in production, we do not allow the flags to be toggled via Backstage. It still goes through the traditional Unleash release process, but it gives teams the ability to quickly come in here, to toggle flags, to adapt strategies on the fly and see how it impacts their product in lower environments before rolling it out to production. And the next layer is the SDK wrapper. There's a lot of benefits here. Some of these are existing today, some of them are roadmap items. This was actually created by one of our product teams, which is a really great sign because we had early buy-in and we had the development teams helping us to adapt, unleash, and fit it into the AA patterns. So some examples of things that this provides us over and above the Unleash SDK can be seen here. So for our Angular apps, they have Angular native dependency injection. If you look at the bottom, testing, it allows us to inject the service via that dependency injection to allow teams to test flags rather than having to mock the entire client. And then it gives us some nice features around managing feature flags in a way that makes sense to us in the AA. So for example, managing the life cycle rather than teams each having to start and stop the life cycle of their flags manually. And then the final layer, this is where a lot of the heavy lifting lands. So the end-to-end paved road. As I mentioned, FeatureOps, but cruise control is FeatureOps made native to the AA. So what does that look like? We have a platform where our digital products run, and that affords us certain benefits around what we can do for teams to make this easy for them to adopt. So we have automated onboarding. So teams can self-onboard to cruise control via a GitHub PR, which is powered by a Terraform module in the background. Again, this is following kind of GitOps practice, so we get all the benefits of PR reviews can be done, and we've got an audit trail of who and when products were onboarded. We can manage secrets for teams, so we no longer have to manually vend tokens from the Unleash UI and then share them with teams somehow. We can create these tokens for them. We can then inject it into their application, either into the environment variables or into the build process from AWS Secrets Manager, depending on whether it's a server component or a UI component. And we can start to build out golden paths that allow teams to build products which are FeatureOps by default. So for example, via Backstage, a work in progress at the moment is to create a template which, when teams are building a new product or service, is automatically onboarded to cruise control. The pipelines are created with the tokens injected, and they have the sample application running with the Unleash wrapper pre-configured, and essentially they are up and running from day one with feature flags the AA way. And all of that brings us to a summary from a technical point of view, excuse me, which is what's next for cruise control. We've already seen really great adoption across the digital components. It's one of those things that once teams see the benefits, they use it more and more. So particularly teams that have been running A/B/N testing, as Nikhil mentioned, there's been some great optimizations done in a number of our digital products based on having the power to run experiments and see data. The more that teams use it, the more that they want to use it. But what we're really looking to do now is broaden that adoption beyond the digital components. And by that, I mean we have web and mobile applications. We have a layer of microservices that power those, and those are already heavily adopting it. But we do also depend on other core IT systems, and some of those are COTS products and some of them are self-built. But we're looking to extend cruise control into those products. And what that allows us, as Nikhil mentioned at the start, these company-wide programs of change, that will allow us not only to use cruise control to control the rollouts of the digital aspects of those change, but to control the rollout of those changes throughout the entire stack and the entire business. And then the second thing is agentic SDLC. Like everyone in the market, we are looking at how best we can accelerate the pace of change by adopting agentic AI into our SDLC. And for us, cruise control will be used to make FeatureOps a first-class citizen as we evolve that process. So, for example, having skills that allow our agentic AI tooling to know how to interact with cruise control, how to use feature flags, and embedding that into the process. And that is it from my slides. So hopefully everybody's had a good overview of what cruise control is, the benefits that it's provided to the AA, and that really for both Nikhil and I is the key thing. I think adopting technology for technology's sake never works. There has to be a business reason behind it, and there has to be a so what, as Nikhil always tells me. And I think we saw some clear so whats there. And then hopefully from the second half, you've seen how we've used platform engineering and increased levels of automation and self-service, and also wrapping in AA practices to roll cruise control across our digital teams. And with that, we will hand over for any questions that the audience have.
All right. Thank you so much, Lorne. Thank you so much, Nikhil, for joining. An amazing talk. Loved hearing a lot about your thought process end to end as it relates to cruise control. Nikhil, let me start with you. One question coming out was, I know you and I had even met as part of the kind of selection process. As you were building the selection process for cruise control, would love to hear maybe something that stood out that was important from an evaluation perspective.
Thanks, Nick. That's a great question. One thing which really stood out was the extensibility of the cruise control as a platform. When we were evaluating various options, extensibility was an important thing, because while the services could provide that capability, how we could make it much more bespoke for our implementation, because every implementation, every organization had their nuances in a different way and challenges, and how to solve that. So for an example, we were able to create a wrapper on top of the Unleash API. What it enabled us is, if we have a front-end application that needs to use FeatureOps, if we have a back-end application that needs to use FeatureOps, they could use and extend this wrapper rather than implementing it all the way from scratch. So that was the key benefit that in initial discussions was highlighted, and was not openly offered by other solutions available in the market.
Very helpful, Nikhil, and appreciate you sharing that. Lorne, as I turn to you, first and foremost, on behalf of the entire Unleash team, we've loved partnering with GlobalLogic and yourself and the team. You talked a lot about the paved road. What's maybe one challenge that stood out as part of this process, or one learning that you've learned as part of this process?
Well, you give me the tough questions. I think adoption with any platform engineering initiative and creating paved roads, adoption can always be a challenge. And that's why I think it's important to listen to what people need. And so, for example, the creation of the Backstage plugin was because of a direct pain point that our teams were having around having to context switch to different portals or raise tickets to people like us that could control the flags across all the environments for them. And so I guess one challenge is knowing what your users need and reacting to that, and sort of having that feedback loop from users is always important. And then the second part is, I mentioned not adopting technology for technology's sake. I think to Nikhil's point about extensibility, another challenge with adopting tools like Unleash and practices like FeatureOps in general, and it ties closely to that adoption, can be just opening a tool to people and expecting them to use it. And so
Mhm.
something we were very cognizant about from day one, and Nikhil sort of led this, was what should our operating model for cruise control look like? We don't want to just say to teams, okay, we've got this great tool now, use it. We were very considered and organized around how we rolled it out. So we started with simple release flags on off so that we could get that onboarding process and start showing teams how to use it. We then rolled into the ABN testing, or the variants, and again we were controlled about how we created that experience for teams, etc. So I think if I was to summarize that answer, challenges are always adoption and getting people interested, and the sort of thing that helped us overcome those challenges are just involving people early. I also mentioned having a development team build the Unleash wrapper. Again, that got them involved and bought in super early, because it wasn't just something we were doing, they were involved with it. And then having that constant feedback loop, so that when we're hearing teams saying, okay, I like this, but we can keep evolving the kind of cruise control experience.
Well, listen, Nikhil and Lauren, it was great learning about cruise control. Also, very cool project name indeed, Nikhil. Love kind of how you're phrasing it. Thank you so much for joining us here at FeatureOps Summit 2026. Really appreciate the time.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks for having us.